All praises to Yahweh. All praises to Yahweh Shai. All praises for the Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone that have been and continue to teach the true gospel. Salute to the Akim, spreading the true gospel on the streets and lanes of the city, on the highways and hedges, and on the World Wide Web. Much love to the humble Akwath, who learn the science with all subjection and are in righteous order under the men of Yahweh Yahweh Shai. This is the brother Raza from the Church of Philadelphia. And hey, Lord just put on my spirit to go into false accusers. Because hey, in these last days, there are going to be more and more false accusations levied against the prophets, righteous people. You know, and again, it is to stoke fear, stoke doubt and belief, so that people see us as evil. People see us as antagonists, right? People see us as crazy, right? So, you know, as we get to these last days, there's going to be more and more lies put out about the Hebrew Israelites. You know, and because they know if you control the narrative and you're able to put out your lies and you keep repeating those lies, people are going to believe it. And because they control what narrative gets put out there, hey, it's easy for them to make these false accusations. But let's see what the Bible says about the false accusations that are going to be brought unto us. Because you can find everything that we do actually in the Bible. You can find everything that we believe in the Bible as righteous and as the way of life of the Hebrew Israelites. So let's get into this precept. This is the book of 1 Peter, chapter 3, verse 16. Having a good conscience, that whereas they speak evil of you. So again, we have to prepare for this. And that's why the Bible says what was written aforetime was written for our learning, because this is what's going to happen. And when it happens, then we should count the cost, you know, and make sure that we have sufficient enough faith to withstand the wiles of the devil and Satan and all these false accusers. Because we can go back and prove where what we're doing is righteous and prove that it is the way of life of the Hebrew Israelites. Other people can't do that, right? But we can. It says, having a good conscience, that whereas they speak evil of you as of evildoers, they may be ashamed that falsely accuse your good conversation in Hamashiach. Yeah, because all we want to talk about actually is the law, statutes, and commandments. All we want to reference is what Yahweh Shai did and what Yahweh Shai talked about and what Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai says is good. Because what does the Bible say? They're going to call good evil and they're going to call evil good. And that's what's happening right before our eyes. You know, it says, verse 17, for it is better if the will of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai be so. So it's better, and it's actually expedient that we do the will of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, that we keep the law, statutes, commandments to the best of our ability in this wicked place. Because sure, wickedness seems right in a wicked society. Righteousness seems wrong in a wicked society, in an unrighteous society. It says, for it is better if the will of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai be so, that ye suffer for well-doing, than for evil doing. So, hey, as prophets of the Lord, guess what? We're going to have to suffer. We're going to be persecuted. We're going to be ostracized. We're going to be made to sit very, very low. No matter what you have, no matter what your education is, no matter what you believe you've done in this world, they are going to make sure that you are low, very low, especially if you're a man of the Lord, especially if you stand 10 toes down on being a Hebrew Israelite and doing the work by putting up videos, by studying with brothers, by studying on your own to show yourself approved, by going out on the streets and lanes of the city and the highways and hedges. If you do that and they find out, hey, you should know that they're going to come down with great wrath on you because you're standing on what you believe. You're standing on who you are. But it says, verse 17 again, for it is better if the will of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai be so that ye suffer for well doing. So we're suffering because we're because of trying to follow the laws, statutes, commandments, trying to be who we are. And that's all throughout the Bible too. From the disciples to the prophets to the brothers in the Maccabees, right? Hey, they stood on Israelite business. They stood on the Israelite way of life, and they were persecuted. And so there's no new thing, as the scriptures say, there's no new thing under the sun. And so what happened back then is happening now. But that should be a faith booster. That's how we know we're in this truth. That's why we know it's true and exact. Because it was written for us to know as a sign for how we're going to be treated. It says, for it is better if the will of Yahweh Bashim Shai be so that ye suffer for well doing than for evil doing. Yeah, it may seem like, hey, you're going to be okay if you just bow down to the ways of the devil, bow down to the ways of the society, the wicked society. Yeah, but hey, are you fearing the creature that was made, or the creator that made the creature? Because ultimately, that's a test of faith. So you're going to put your faith and your trust in this wicked men, in this wicked society, or are you going to suffer for well doing? It says, for Hamashiach also hath once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. You know? So, hey, this is a spiritual thing, and this is spiritual warfare. So, hey, we shouldn't mind that which can kill the body, but we should mind that which can kill the body and soul, roughly paraphrasing, right? So we can't get caught up in what's happening right now. We have to understand and endure for the ultimate goal. Because, hey, we know absolutely we're in the last days of the last days. You know, and we know that this devil's going to come down having great wrath because he knoweth he hath but a short time. We know he's going to falsely accuse us. You know, we know that he's going to push out the narrative that this evil, wicked society is a good society. What do they call it? Is progressive. And the people that are more biblical or more traditional, or what they sometimes will call conservative, are wrong. And they need to expand their horizons, right? Expand their mind. But no, What does the Lord say? It says, For I'm the Lord, I change not. And this is the perfect way of life. Perfection doesn't need to be messed with. You know? So there's no change needed. It is what it is. It is a perfect way of life that leads to a life that's more abundant. And that's what we want. That's why we can't wait to get in the kingdom. We can't wait for that second covenant to be fully implemented. It says, by which also, it says, for Christ also hath once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to Yahweh Bashim Shai, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit. So yeah, they carnally killed him, but he laid his life, because they can't do anything unless he laid his life, and he did that. It says, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of Yahweh Bashim Shai waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. Yeah. So the purpose here is to follow the laws, statutes, and commandments, knowing that you're going to be falsely accused. What does it say? The false accuser of thy brethren, right? Hey. But you got to measure the time diligently, right? You got to make sure you have that strong foundation. That means you got to keep your hand on the plow, keep doing the work. And that's how the Lord is going to continue to increase your faith, by doing this work, by calling out to him, by trusting in him, by putting your faith in him, and allowing him to do his work. Because all things are possible through Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. You know, and at the end of the day, his will is going to be done. And we have to accept that. But keep our faith in him. You know? So, hey, I was a little swift one, Lord willing. I was edifying to the elect. Until next time, Shalom.